Hi, I'm Sasha Moore, and I'm so glad to be here today with my great industry buddy, Donelle Brooks, who is the head of client and partnerships at TP24. Welcome, Donelle.
Morning, Sash. Nice to be with you again.
Likewise, I always like doing our little ventures together. So I have known Donelle now for quite some time, and I've always enjoyed working with Donelle and speaking with her in from the perspective that she's always very much allowed me to embrace my authenticity. So meaning I would come up with some ridiculous harebrained disruptive idea and she'd go, yeah, why not? I'm like, fantastic, go big or go home. So what that meant in terms of the relationship that Donelle and I have had is that when we were working together, we just blitzed it, right? And every single campaign we did just kept on growing and growing and growing. And I've always really appreciated that confidence that I felt from her in terms of have the big ideas and then see where it goes, opposed to other people who are a little more conservative and a little more risk adverse. So hence why I wanted to invite Donelle to have this chat in the lead up to the Power of Authenticity webinar next week, because I love that Donelle really embraces her authenticity and her individuality, but also correlates that with a very clear value set. So Donelle, I'd really love to pick your brain about that value set piece and how you use that in a professional circumstance in terms of your decisioning.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sash, I think too, it's not, I think authenticity is something that comes with maturity, with confidence, with a great board of directors around you. And here's some authenticity for you because there's my phone ringing while we're talking. So I'll just make sure that's on silent, but there's some but for me, certainly over the last few years, I've really been able to visualize and see and feel that relationship between what my core values are, how they align with organizational values of where I'm working at the time, and then how I deliver that in line with also having to toe the company line sometimes, right? So for me, it's really about staying true to my beliefs. Now, what sometimes people confuse is your delivery may change, but the message and the values that sit behind that remain the same. But how you then need to deliver that message or how you need to engage with a particular audience, whether it's clients, internal, external, whatever it may be, is that you really do keep that true core value set in mind when delivering good, bad, or indifferent messaging. And that's what's really important to me, is to stay honest to myself, because that not only creates a safe environment for everyone that you're working with, because they know that you're coming from that place and why you're coming from that place. You and I both know that authenticity and transparency are thrown around like, the buzzwords, but how do you actually do it? And I think until you can make that correlation between your value set, then you can display true authenticity.
No, indeed, and I think that it's really interesting in terms of you're right. It is such an elusive word, and it's been very interesting just exploring what this means to different people, and that there's expectedly no one set answer. But what I'm really realizing is that value piece, and where being defined in your values and also knowing when to walk into an environment and equally when to exit an environment. And I think it's really, we're coming into such a different age of professional standards and professional acceptance that place of individuality and that place of values is really mandated. So if you can come with a very strong sense of not only who you are but what your values are, then I think that ultimately it's going to create a better ecosystem for everyone involved. Having said that, I think that your delivery piece is a really interesting one, right? And I think also people perhaps sometimes confuse being authentic with being abrupt, or being authentic and saying, oh, that's just me. So I do definitely agree with you that independently of your core, your delivery is everything, because despite your intention, the delivery can destroy it. So can you perhaps, we've sort of talked quite holistically, can you give an example of how you've perhaps even, say, modified your delivery, or equally how you've made value-based decisions, whether they're micro or macro?
Yeah, and look, I'll probably try and align it to something that you spoke about earlier about, big ideas, go hard, go home, let's just have a crack and see what happens. I think one of the big things for me is that I'm a true believer in the philosophy of failing together. And so where that, and a lot of people say that, but then don't mean it and don't follow through and can leave a colleague or a client or someone out to dry, right? So that's probably a real understanding and a real true evidence piece of where that communication changes. So when you and I are talking about a situation or an idea or something that we want to try, our conversation is very raw, lots of detail to start with, lots of information, and we're really trying to focus on what's going to go right and know that there's things that may go wrong. Now, when I need to communicate that to a broader team, that Sasha and I have got this great idea and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, is that delivery needs to come with the understanding of the fear of failure, and that the failure is okay and that we're prepared for that. So the data and the reasoning behind why you're making the decision can be very different to you and I brainstorming to then what I may need to take, say, to a board of directors or to my team, that we're going to try this harebrained idea and see what happens, but it's okay. We know that it may fail and these are the consequences of failure, but we failed together. And so, again, it's a lot more data-driven when you're needing the buy-in of senior management or board or your team. That is a lot more detailed, and you need to be really clear on the deliverables, but you also need to be able to stand behind your own truth and your own value set and why you're wanting to do that. So I feel as though that it's not even necessarily from whether it's from an intellect perspective, it may just be around the build-up or the makeup of the team or the person, and being able to communicate at a level that works for them and know that then you're going to have their support and their buy-in. So I think for me that, there's always differing levels of communication, and you're right, that authenticity piece around, well, I can be brash and I can be bold because I own it, is not always an excuse to allow the way that messaging can be delivered, right? So for me, it's definitely that truth, but being so aware of your audience and being able to understand how you need to deliver that message, because your authenticity is what gets you the buy-in from the people that you're talking to. So yeah, for me, I find it really important to be able to leverage and change your communication style to ensure that your values do stay aligned, but also that you get the result that you're looking for.
Yeah, and I think that you're really spot on. The delivery is everything, and also, as you identified, the priority for that stakeholder, that you're delivering it in a way that connects with that, as you said, fear, opportunity, or other. But I think it's also an awareness piece as well, in terms of really reading the room, and, as you said, knowing your audience. Because I mean, particularly in my younger career, I would just get so enthusiastic about an idea and just not position it appropriately and have it shut down. But to your point, I think the more you're aware of your various stakeholders and where their threshold and where their tolerance is going to be, and to openly acknowledge that, it's a much more efficient way to get things over the line, get buy-in, or even have more robust discussions. Like, you know, a lot of ideas, once they are fully baked, perhaps they don't stack up, and that's okay as well. So I think it's also from, particularly if you're in a more creative environment, it's also realizing that not everything is going to stack up, and rather than a personal assault or feeling a personal criticism, it's like, yeah, it just, that once baked, that idea didn't stick, but it was better to have the conversations and get the different perspectives than to not go there to start with. So, and I think also having that authentic, almost attached response, because you're then focused on the idea or the concept, you're not focused on your ego, it then actually allows so much more efficient professional growth, because you're then not taking it personally, because you're having a very open and authentic and robust discussion, which ultimately then betters everyone.
Correct. And you know, you and I have said this for years and years and years. So many positive things happen from robust discussions, and robust discussions do not need to be disrespectful. And robust discussions often are you making compromises on the idea, because now that you've thrown it out there and people can hear and see and feel your enthusiasm or your commitment to it, that they get on board and throw 5 or 6 other things in that you've never even thought about. And turn this idea or concept or message or delivery of information that needs to happen from something that sits here to something that now is this big, and it's refined, and it's being able to, you know, deliver across different things, which is such a big strategy of change management, right, as well, which, as you know, I do a fair bit of. And that is about ensuring that you consider everyone, and then being able to deliver the message to the tech team in a database way that's understanding to them that they're going to be the ones that are doing a lot of grunt work to start with, and the sales team on the other end are the ones that are going to have all the benefits. That's the truth. That's what it is. So being able to deliver that with passion and an understanding and with truth is just so important, and you get people to jump on those. And that's why people who are risk adverse or change adverse will jump on when they feel like they're part of the process, because you are authentic in the way that you're trying to deliver this huge change piece.
And I think to further that, I think the intention is really the core. You know, there are sort of vanity ideas that, you know, will make you perhaps look great, but the intention is never, as you can smell when people's motivation just isn't for the true cause. So I think the intention also can help in that delivery piece as well, because if you're coming from that place of genuine intention and you are delivering it authentically, then I think you're right. You have much greater opportunity for buy-in. But as I was saying before, equally enough detachment to go, you know what, this isn't necessarily baked completely, but it is baked to an extent that we're going to now sort of test it out, and we're gonna flex test it. And if it flex tests and it works, then you're onto something great.
Agreed, 100% agree.
Well, Donelle, I could speak to you about this all day, but I will wrap now. Thank you so much for your insights, and we'll look forward to seeing you next Friday.
Sash, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to being part of the audience for this one, and I'm loving the topics that you're delivering through this series, and really glad to spend some time with you today.
Thanks, babe. See you soon.
Bye.